Hi, welcome to Passion for Property with me, Manni Chopra. And my guest today is a very young, inspirational property developer from B&Q to bank jobs. Would you believe it? He is definitely very motivational, and I'm super excited to share his property journey with you guys. Please welcome Stuart Ry.
Thank you very much. I don't know about young anymore, Manni. I recently turned 40, so I don't feel as young as I once was, but...
You're still youngish compared to me. So yes, I'm still going to call you young. But hey guys, thank you so much for coming today and, sparing your time. I know you are super busy, you're doing lots of stuff. So just for the benefit of people who may have not watched previous videos, give us a bit of flavor of what was like before property development.
Property development. Well, I've always been in construction, I suppose, ever since leaving school, as you said, B&Q. So when I was old enough to work, I got a job from a friend of a friend's sister who got me into customer services at B&Q, and it was a way of getting into learning about the products and learning what customers are like. And I was a C/B grade student at school, so never really was an A student, and would never really sort of thought academic route was going to be the way I went. I went to college and done an O&D in construction just to start the journey in understanding what it's like to be in construction. But as soon as I realised that all the jobs they taught you there are very much technical roles, once I understood how AutoCAD worked, it's like, yeah, good, completed that. I never actually wanted to do it full time. Then went into a bit of QSing and a bit of civils and sort of put these bits together whilst working at B&Q part time. And my cousin actually is very manual, very hands on, and he went from school to work for a carpenter who ultimately started a loft conversion company and was going through the growing pains of running a small business. Had his architects let him down, and was desperate to bring someone in house. And Dan enjoyed working for him. And the guy offered me a job as his in-house loft architect and said, look, take a gap year out. Obviously not knowing what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I was going to uni or not. And he said, look, take a gap year out, come and live at my pocket, and I'll teach you about lofts and structure and stills. And it was a good opportunity. Dan enjoyed working for him, and he was a nice guy. And I sat next to him in a studio similar to this, in his office, in his garden, and sat there with him and watched him make day-to-day decisions of running a business. And he was a good guy. He meant well, but he didn't know how to run a business. And and through mistakes and
so he was more of a technician. He was more of
he was a hands-on guy trying to run a business, a small business, and he grew too fast. He took too many vans on. He overstretched, and prices were moving around him. He didn't keep an eye on his costs. And over 12 months of working for him, I sort of watched the rise and fall of his business. And then he went bust, and it was horrific to watch. And at 20, I vowed never to run my own business because it looked terrifying. But looking back all those years, 20 years, I learned some of my biggest lessons working for him, because understanding your numbers is absolutely critical. And the way I run SkyLofts now, it's all based on the cash flow forecast, the numbers of project costs in real time. And we use that data to price jobs for next month. So we're literally living in the moment, and we don't think that just because it cost 60 grand last year doesn't mean it's going to cost 60 grand this year. And everything is designed to move around you. So I learned those lessons. He went bust, and obviously after a year of earning pretty decent money, hopefully that wasn't the reason why he went bust, I sent out a CV to about 10 other loft companies, and the next guy got in contact with me literally the following day and said, come in for an interview. So I went in the following day. He said, look, split your time 50% in the architectural practice and 50% with me out on the roads meeting new customers. He threw me one lead after about 2 weeks of being with him every day. I went and saw a customer in Uxbridge down the road, and they went ahead straight away. They wanted 1 bedroom and a loft. It was 27 grand, and she actually worked for the BBC. I can't remember her name now, but she was the first person I ever walked in on my own. I was 20, and I walked into a family of 4 and gone, yeah, you can have a loft. This is what it'll look like. This is where the stairs will go. And about a week later, after sending the quote, they said, yeah, we want to go ahead. And Steve, the guy I worked for, he was absolutely, he was quite impressed. And then I never went into design. I went into sales, and that was the start of my first 6 years there of running lofts, where they went from 6 loft teams when I joined them, and they went to 46 loft teams the year after. So they grew to, they were doing £1 million a month, and it was myself and the owner. I was very proud to work for them at the time, and it was a massive part of my education. That was my university. But after 6 years of doing the same job, doing this, being responsible for the same part, there was no opportunity to become a shareholder or to take the business further. So I decided to part ways, and then went into construction with 2 brothers. So for 5 years, I set up a construction company. They already had a little small glazing business, and they were great guys. We're still the best of friends, but we decided to all join forces and have a go at this construction world. And we went from doing sort of 80 grand extensions to sort of £1 million full house refurbishments over quite a short period of time. And running your own business, you need to put in systems and you have to organically grow it and grow and scale up. And when I was with two builders who are excellent builders, at the time, it wasn't really set up as a proper business. So I was working evenings, weekends, and it was very stressful and for not much reward. And after a period of time, after 5 years, I decided that it was hard. The hardest thing I ever had to do at the time was to walk away from my first business that I've put in 8 days a week, 28 hours a day. Like, it was everything I had was trying to get this business to succeed. And we were profitable, but it was not huge amounts of profit.
But it was you had a share in the business, right?
Oh yeah, I was a 33 and a third shareholder. It was three of us. We all went into it equally. And after 5 years of doing that, I decided that the time was for me to leave. I sold my shares back to them for a very fair amount. The deal was they knew I was going back into lofts because I bought the loft model to the party. They bought the conservatories, the glazing, the extensions, and together we had a go at becoming a general builder. But the biggest problem with running a building company like that is that if you do everything, there's too many systems to learn. There's 20,000 things that can go wrong, and it's like a sieve with too many holes in it. You just can't control anything.
Yeah.
So after 5 years of doing that, I decided to go back into lofts, take all the knowledge I had of all these problems that I now could foresee, build the systems, the processes, and then I set up SkyLofts in 2013, and the rest is history, really, and never look back.
It's interesting you talk about this business, and niching, for example, is another good thing that we always teach in property development as well, right? Niching your strategy and becoming good at one thing, whether that's shops and uppers, whether it's new build, whatever it is. So tell us about your property journey. You've done obviously the 2,500 lofts.
Yeah, 2,500 lofts in my career, but SkyLofts have set up since 2013 was done just over 1,000 lofts now.
Wow!
So we before COVID or before the pandemic, we were hitting 125 lofts a year, and we were trying to aim to become the first national loft conversion company in the UK. But there was a load of issues in terms of trying to grow a business. When you've got a team of sort of 10 internal staff that you work on a one-to-one basis with, and they work for you and you work for them, and it all works together. When you try and put middle management in to try and grow to the next level, you have to invest so much time and energy, and you make a lot less profit trying to grow. And then the relationships and the culture changes. So it was a difficult gig, but until the pandemic, that was my journey to make money. I always wanted to do property, but it was another distraction. I understood lofts, and from 2013, I set up all the infrastructure. We had like 350 documented processes. We had a pre-build team, a during build team. So I had all the positions in my mind made. And at the start, I was doing all of them. And then I brought in a good friend of mine to do half of them. And then we diluted their job role into 2 or 3 other bits. And we built the team around the process. And that was because I could start. And I had 4 months off between leaving the first company, Marble Construction, and setting up SkyLofts. And I had time to think. My wife, very supportive, was out working, and we had this new house together, and it was all cracking on. But I had to spend the time to build it, which then we could then know that my job was to put the sales in the front end, which I was comfortable to do, and it would spit out good quality lofts, and we had our values and stuff. So we done that for the next 7 years up until the pandemic, and it was good. It was challenging, profitable. You know, there's always room for more profit, but in the growth phase, that's not your number one priority. And then when COVID hit, it was a chance for us to breathe. And for the first time in 14 years, I've not got the phones ringing. I'm not in that active role of a director. It's anyone who's run a business and is watching this, it's like when it snowballs, you can increase the size of the snowball, foot pedal on the gas, take your foot off and control it to an element, but it's always rolling. But when COVID hit and it was 8 weeks of no phone ringing, time to reflect, and actually a good friend of mine who now runs Marble Construction, he's still one of my best friends, and he rang me over that COVID first few days and said, have you heard about these COVID loans? I said, I don't do debt. I've never done debt. I didn't understand it to a degree. I understand mortgages. I had one house I bought in 2007 out of the first job that I've always held on to. But apart from that and my own house, I never used credit. I never used to grow the business on debt.
So no business loans?
No business loans. It was always money. We was always positive.
Cash job.
We'd make decisions and growth based on how much money was in the bank. And obviously we'd always have a surplus in case mistakes or issues or anything had to happen, we had to fix. But until that point where they literally started printing money, that was the first time when I was exposed to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, thinking, how the hell, why we work so hard for them just to, on a flick of a switch, print all this money? And then they were issuing out loans to everyone. And because I had a business that was £4 million a year, he said to me, look, you should give your bank manager a call and just ask them, because it's better in your bank than theirs. And I said, that's a fair point. So it was an interest-free period for 12 months where you didn't actually pay any interest on the money. Money was free at the time.
The bounce bank loans, right?
Yeah, it was I can't remember what loan it was. It was some COVID loan, which anything up to £250,000 was there was no guarantor needed. So that's what was the trigger to go, well, if there's no guarantor up to £250,000, I rang my
The
bank
loan
manager
itself was £250,000
for business.
because of the size of the turnover of your business.
So I rang up my bank manager and said, look, we've got most of our bills covered. We've got a few things to pay. We have no idea how long Boris is going to ask us to stay at home. And within 3 days, I sent them a cash flow. I sent them a forecast about the business that we had, all the deposits paid and where we were booked up to. And within 3 days, £240,000 at the bank.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's great. That was as simple as that. And so we had savings plus this money and some time to think.
Was that going to be money for your team? Like, did you have people on your PAYE that you had to fund or pay salaries to and stuff?
So it was the furlough was protecting my staff, which was fine. So they were comfortable in terms of what was being offered to us. I don't agree with all this, but this is what I had to play the cards dealt with me.
Of course, absolutely.
So I don't agree with the way they dealt with it, but so furlough was supporting the team, myself, my wife, who also works for the company, and our internal staff, our architects and accountants and stuff. They were all fine, but the fitters weren't. So the fitters, I've got about 80 contractors, from the scaffolders, the plasterers, the roofers, who are all effectively smaller businesses. They work for us, they work for others, they work for some of our customers, but they fell through the gaps and they had no furlough, they had no way of making money, and they were calling us. And I do look at them and treat them like employees, like they are. It's very much a partnership. And when they were stuck, I was like, what are we going to do? And when I got access to this money, the right thing for me to do was to I could buy a property in cash.
Yeah.
So I set up SW Homes and Developments. I'd done a business loan because I was the same director. The money was lent. There was no rules at the time, so I was not being told not to do it. So as a director,
director's loan.
I'd done a director's loan to this new business. I bought a property in Guildford, which is a very small
cash.
Yeah, with my business's cash, because I've got debt on SkyLofts, and we bought the property, and it allowed me to put 15 guys who are my business in terms of what they deliver for SkyLofts. I could put them on there, and they could build this property, which was our first HMO, and it was a 2-bed. Even to view it was difficult because I just said I'd buy it. I know the road, I know the house, I'm comfortable, and they still wanted me to walk through the back door. So masked up, opened the door, I had to sweep at the back, go 30 seconds inside. Yeah, I don't care, I'll buy it. And I could throw the boys over the summer. Obviously the door started opening now, and we went back to work slowly, and we could work outside and stuff. But I didn't know at the time what the world looked like for the next 2 years. But what I did know is that there's always going to be a demand. There's a hospital right next to it, and there's a university. So we made that into a 5-bed, 5-ensuite HMO. We've done it in about 4 months, bought it in May, and we caught the September academic year, which was great because my letting agent, who I've now got a very good relationship with, not only did she do me a good management fee, because I promised her I'd be buying more of these if it worked, but I said to her, we'll be done by the 9th of September, whenever the deadline was for these unorganised students at the time. They still needed somewhere to start their education. So I had all boys on deck. I was there cracking rocks. I was the fittest I've ever been. Literally, I gave up drinking during COVID as well, and that gave me the extra energy to get on with this journey. Started breaking rocks, labouring for the boys, putting blocks down. It was great fun, and we got it done. And now I rent that property for £4,000 a month to student HMOs, and the mortgage, yes, it's in a 5-year fixed, and it's just under it's about £1,000, but because it's a student HMO, there's no council tax to pay because they're exempt. There's no heating bills, electricity bills, or all the other costs you get with a professional HMO. Because it's a student, because it's 5, they all rent it as one unit. So I rent it as an AST under one AST, several liable, what it was called, AST. But they take care of their own bills. So it's one of the best investments I ever made. And then we went and bought one 4 or 5 doors up the road and built it even faster and cheaper. And then from there, it sort of snowballed into people watching our journey. People started wanting to help us invest. And, I bought £300,000 off some friends of mine, bought another HMO, and we started building this portfolio up. And it's got bigger and bigger since then, really.
I mean, the beauty was you obviously had this big consortium of people, investors, friends who in the construction industry with spare cash, just investing in you, I guess. Did you find it easy to find investors?
Well, the 2 people invested in me first, they sold their shares. They sold a percentage of some shares literally the week before COVID. So they were sitting in their garden, enjoying, and they were watching on social media because everyone was at home, enjoying the garden, having a drink or whatever. And they had this load of cash come in. And not only did they go and buy some lovely cars and upgraded their own houses, but some of the money, I showed them what I was doing, and they were just interested in property in general, like most people are who watch this stuff. And I said to them, there's an opportunity that's come up in Aldershot. Would they be up for? I need about £300,000. And they said, yeah, we'll throw you 150 each. I could, now SkyLofts was back to work, I could use some cash flow to build the work out and then pay everyone back at the end of the project. And that was the first easy answer to, I realised how easy it is to ask for money, and people closest to you are watching. And, you never know who's got money and who hasn't. So for them, it was some money. It was low risk for them. They've watched me for the last 15 years do this type of stuff. For them, it was a 10% return when money was at 0%. So they were like, that's a good deal for me. It's a good deal for me. And we got on with it. And then from there, I've used social media and Instagram, which is my main channel, just to sort of have a digital scrapbook of what we're doing.
Yeah.
I love it. Sitting on the beach or on holiday. And if I get time, I just love going back to the old ones going, oh my God, do you remember that war? Do you remember that problem? Do you remember what we had to do here? And it's just looked nice to look back on what it used to look like. And then once it's finished, and the transformation I still love to this day. And that's what keeps me going. But it's a great game to be in. And then from there, more people watch. You get, and when we started buying nice looking buildings, that was another marketing strategy, was to buy these banks that we've got. It's because yes, we can make more margin on shitty, horrible looking buildings, but they're so good. And to put them on the website and to put them out with investor packs and to sort of stamp our name on it really, and sort of wrap these things up, and just nice to be part of the portfolio. We don't have to do the property. I still love doing lofts. But if you're going to do it, you might as well do it with some nice looking buildings. Like you buy banks as well. And it's just something that gives you that extra burst of energy when you can look at it at the end. If you don't make as much margin as you set out to make, it doesn't really matter. You still look at it and go, we own that building. It's bloody beautiful. No one's going to take that away from us.
So from HMOs to bank jobs, what's been your sort of favorite bank job? I know you've done a few bank deals, conversions. What is your strategy? Is it buy to hold, buy to sell? What's your preference and why?
Yep. So during that COVID period, the answer to that is that we're residential developers, right? There is very different. A lot of people who follow me on Instagram are builders or plumbers, electricians who actually want to get into property. And what I would say is, it's naively, when we got into property, sticking plasterboard on walls and putting nice kitchens in and laying things out is only a very small part. Yes, it's good that we've got the skills, because that's probably the biggest risk for developers, is dealing with someone to trust them to do a good job in the construction piece. But there's so many more parts of the development cycle that you need to learn. And I think naively, if I knew what I knew now at the start, I'd have gone, it's not worth the headache and energy. Let's just stick to what we're doing and just do more of them. But we're in it. And when we were in it, and actually when you look at the end and look at what you've built, like the first one we bought was so my cousins have got a very successful business as well. And they've got a magazine which they take like an annual subscription. And they had 12 months worth of annual subscriptions, which they can't use until the year's up, but they could lend it. So they lent me £1 million to buy a Boots building. We paid like 400 grand for it. I don't remember the exact numbers. Probably spent about 1.1 on it. All in all, paid them back their 10% on this 12 months. Again, money was free. And we put 9 one-bed flats in an old Boots building. It was a great investment. We refinanced it. We had to leave like 80 grand or something in, but it pays us 65 grand net a year. So it's a great investment. And that we were lucky with that, because we went into it not really knowing how much more is involved. And we done a great job. We refinanced it. We done what we needed to do, and we still hold it. But the difference between us is that we are always holding stuff. So we are spending a lot more time on thinking about replacing washing machines and make sure the floor is flush underneath it, so it's not going to rip the kitchen out when, if there's an issue, or if we want to replace, or if there's a leak on a basin or a toilet. We've made it all very, very accessible to make it minimum for maintenance as possible.
The hatches and all that, right?
Yeah, just everything. The way it's all designed is all about trying to make sure that if there's a problem that comes up between now and the next 20 years, it's very easy fixable. And it's not like we use shower panels rather than tiles, because we've got like 3 different packages, whether we're working in Richmond or Kingston, Twickenham now, or in Farnborough in Hampshire. And we've got like a premium pack and an economy pack. So we're just trying to build these packages up so we can apply that package to a certain site.
Yeah. Depending on the location and the price per square foot in that area and all that.
Exactly. Like, it's hard to hold blocks. We've got one in Twickenham at the moment. It's got 6 units in it and a dentist. Our investors in on it. And, whether we can get all his money out or half his money out, but to hold 6
still
flats,
is that currently?
Yeah, we're in development now. So, it's the market. We're all swimming against this tide. I think the last 3 or 4 years where they printed all this money, QT has really, really struggled with a bit of stagnation, and with house prices aren't moving, and that's manipulated. Then try not to move the market because of the money they're not printing at the moment, but they're going to have to pay off debts from previous years.
I think that's been the biggest problem in the last sort of like 11, 12 years. I've been a developer, is the prices. Like, we incorporated in 2016, and I remember you had to put a price of the property, when you incorporate. Those prices haven't moved. We've actually sold for less than what they were in 2016. So although in paper they say it's flat and it's 2.5% a year, 3%, whatever, it's in keeping in line with inflation, it's actually dropped because, as you said, there's more money in the market. So probably it has dropped quite a lot.
It's
right?
well, I think it's probably sustained. What's happened is they've debased the currency. So even though the house prices haven't moved as much, I mean, I've just sold our own house for 100 grand less than I sold it 2 years ago, but we're buying a house that's 300 grand less than the house next door that also bought 2 years ago. So if you're moving up the ladder, it's not so much of an issue personally. But one thing in the areas we focus in just outside of London is that the yields are great, and because the demand of rent is so high, because the houses that are being picked up by the big companies and obviously you know what's going on with the country and stuff with the lack of housing, but effectively the demand of rentals is insane. So the yield and the cash flow that the property can create is what we're doing. We're not trying to flip properties on and make a profit because we're not in that market. We've not sold anything. We've kept everything. We've refinanced it, and then we've enjoyed the income either with our own properties or shared it with the investor. So every deal we've done, we've said a minimum of 5 years to give us that time to stabilise the asset and to keep the income
your
together.
investor is keeping the money with you for 5 years?
Yeah, so they put their equity in, we'll do the work, and then we'll refinance it at whatever the market looks like, because we all know the risk there. But their money would much rather be parked in a property that's paying them an income.
Yeah.
We also get the capital appreciation of the property, and we get to enjoy some income while we wait. If we can't get all the money out, then they're leaving it in as a director's loan or shareholder's loan. So
also the part of your shareholding. So it's
they're always a shareholder.
SW Homes is, and then you do
a separate SPV.
Separate SPV for every development.
Correct.
And each one will have their own, they'll have a share.
Yeah, so there's one layer down. So our structure is that SW Homes I own effectively 88% of.
Yeah.
There's another company which is set up called Wyeth Properties, and that's me and one of my loft fitters who I've had a very good relationship with. The plan until I started this was to have 3 or 4 of these other partnerships with other loft fitters.
Yeah.
They've got different dreams, aspirations. They've obviously seen what's happened with Will and I, who's my business partner in that business. It's that company where I own 60% and he owns 40% that goes into the partnership with the investor. So the investor gets the security of the builder being in as an equity partner, and they get SW Homes and the marketing, and I obviously use SW Homes to bring in the investor. So we set up an SPV. Wyeth Properties owns half, the investor owns half, and they'll put the money in, we'll do all the work. They literally write the check and let us get to work. We give them updates and every month, every quarter. And then at the end, we'll refinance it. We'll pay the investor back as much as the asset allows. The extra money, if there's any left, stays in the company. But we split the income 50-50. And then that's how we allow us to scale at a quicker rate. But now we're looking at bigger, slightly more, because it's the same amount of work if you're doing 4 flats as it has to do 40 for us. So we actually are looking at sites that are 2, 3, 4 million pound with a 10, 12, 15 GDV, million GDV, but which means we need to start raising 2 to 3 million pounds worth of equity. Yeah. So it's the same number. We don't care. It's easier for us. It's less risky for the investor because there's more profit per flat or more of the commercial yield we can refinance against. But it's just harder to find people on the relationship level I've got. I can go to big equity funds and stuff, but I'm really not that type of character. I'd rather just stay at the size we're at or not do any and find someone who's got 10 million quid. He's like, I want to park 2-3 million quid with you. I trust you guys. You know what you're doing. And that's why we do these podcasts, right? It's to get our name out there so people if they want to find out about you, they'll watch everything.
Absolutely. So in terms of a capital stack for each of these developments, then you still have senior debt from banks.
We use them for equity. So we'll put the money in.
60% or so loan to value.
Whatever. I mean, if we can delay the completion, then we'll exchange with our investors' money. We'll add the value. So we just finished an 18-unit scheme in Farnborough, which is just coming up for revaluing now, refinancing.
You're renting the whole lot.
In fact, I met the guy at your networking event. So yeah, one of the guys on the same table. I went to the bar. I don't drink, so I was buying an alcohol-free drink, and he said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Farnborough." He said, "Funny that my brother's just taken an instruction on in Farnborough." He pulled out the phone. I knew exactly where it was. I was actually going to a wedding the following day, but I asked Ross, my head architect, to go over there. He FaceTimed me. I was in Croatia. He measured some dimensions. We could sketch up how many flats we could get. We put an offer in there, and it was ours. But we delayed the completion for 12 months. We added the value by getting planning for what we wanted to do. So we done like 3 or 4 months of the pre-app, and then 6 months for planning. Got it through, and then we actually added extra value when we come to do the dev finance. So that's been interesting. But that was another one we went into naively, thinking we could get in there and do a lot of the commercial conversion works. But my God, the amount of headaches just in terms of structural engineers, getting people to sign off existing buildings, trying to prove a lot of the calculations. No one wants to commit to putting their name to something they haven't had total investment or total involvement in. So the realization of the last few months is that actually conversions, what we do, is the hardest type of development. It's the most exciting and it's very rewarding, But you can see why people go to the new build side, because everything's quantifiable.
Blank canvas,
It's
right?
all nice and easy. We're effectively rebuilding the whole building from inside an old 200-year-old building. Yes, we're buying the location and we're buying the historical past of the building, but we are repointing every brick. We're tying in buildings and walls that need to be retied in. There's so many unforeseens that you could easily spend another 10% of the budget just on things that you don't know you need to do.
See all the ducting.
If you want to do a good job, if you want to budget and get it done and the builder wants to crack on, and because I'm the developer and the contractor, I see everything from the structure through to all the levers I have to play around with. If I was a developer without being the contractor, then you're playing that game between contractors trying to get variations out of the developer.
Yeah.
The developer's preying on the builder going bust because they try to get the cheapest price. And that's an obvious thing that's going to happen, where that comes with a load of headaches and problems and stress that I wouldn't want in my life. So, but then the builder's trying to cut corners. You're left with a shit building that's causing you maintenance issues. So we do tick a lot of boxes from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And that's why we hold it all, is because it would be criminal for us to sell something that isn't going to cost us any time. I don't go back to my HMOs. Once they're done and finished, it's been 2, 3, 4 years. I've got a really good letting team, got a good team in the office who will sort out an electrical issue or a plumbing issue without me even knowing. And we, the rents are really strong where we are. So I just see I went for a wee at like 3 o'clock in the morning on my first HMO, and a £900 payment come in at like 3 in the morning. I was like, I want that to happen every morning. I go for a week, like while I'm sleeping, the money's coming in, and that was the drug. That was like, I was like, it took me all month to work at B&Q to get that sort of income. How many trips to and from the job? I just went for a wee and I've made money, and that was the start of the development project, really.
So, you have done well, but I know banks are challenging. I've done a couple of bank projects myself. You don't know until you actually start hammering on and finding out what's behind the...
If you want an engineer to sign it off, they'll make you do 10 times more work needed to do something that's been standing for 200 years. It's insane, but you got to do it because you need the certificates. You need to prove to everyone that it's all been done properly.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we don't cut corners. I would think we're a very competent builder, but we were even going above and beyond what we think's accessible,
to future-proof it, basically. And I know you're a big advocate of eco builds, and you're doing heat water pumps and electrics,
always,
I suppose,
yep.
or just electric, so no gas in any of your properties.
So no, EPC B minimum. A's is what we're aiming for on most of the stuff. So we're doing EWI, we're doing everything we can: underfloor heating, air source heat pumps, solar panels. We're only restricted to putting solar panels on if the engineers, like this bank, this 18-unit scheme, we weren't allowed to put the solar panels on the roof because they thought it's
conservation area.
No, it's just going to push the weight of the existing building structure. It's crazy. Like we had to put single ply rubber down rather than free mineral roofing felt because to try and keep the weight. I mean, this building could have got 4 stories on top of it.
This is the one in
Farnborough, 18 flats. But so if we're restricted, we won't put. But we've put air source heat pumps in every flat, because the way I see it is, if you're going to have a tenant move in, the biggest cost of a tenant is the changeover. Yeah. So if you can make their lives as comfortable and make it as all our flat schemes as well feel like flat schemes. There's a lot of people online where they'll squeeze a flat in which really doesn't feel like a flat. If you're walking through and you're cracking your head or the kitchen doesn't work, I mean, that is someone that's going to be churning over every 6 months. They're out of there because it's just uncomfortable. Where all of our flats, space planning is my favourite bit, but I won't buy a building or get excited about it or push it forward unless it feels like a purpose-built block of flats. Yeah, and which means our flats work, they're comfortable, they're a good size, and also the heating bills are cheaper. So if you've got someone,
so if you can prove that to the
if it's 80% cheaper to live in one of our flats than it would be to buy one down the road,
and you could probably charge more rent.
Theoretically, you can pay a premium, but it's more about them staying for 2-3 years. Going, actually, it cost me almost like a subscription model. So the HMOs, I'm paying the heating bills, gas bills on the professional ones. So it makes complete sense for me to build into the refinance a battery, solar panels, air source heat pump, underfloor heating, get the thing to run as cheap as possible, and have 6 adult people, professionals living in a building that's costing me a couple £100 a month to run. And we've got different cultures. Some people like their rooms really, really warm because they're not paying for the bills. Why not? Some people are, they want to live the way they live, but I don't. I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to be their space, and I don't want to pay through the nose for it. And the refinancing, the valuers will look at that and go, actually, you've done way above. You've got an EPCA. This thing isn't going to cost. So the OPEX costs are a lot cheaper, which ultimately is the bottom line is better. So
you think you're getting a better rate,
getting a better return
and mortgage rates.
Yeah, if I'm doing commercial mortgage as well, that all helps to go in the numbers that. We all have to manipulate our refinances to get as much money as we can out because our money's better off being cash flowed into other projects. You don't want to overexpose yourself, so you want to blend, but we fall in that position where the yields and the bricks and mortar is about the same. So we can get a bit of a hybrid. Sometimes on commercial, we can push a little bit more and get another few $100,000 out to use into other projects. But I think as long as you're sensible and you've got a very long-term horizon, we all know they're going to debase the money. We all know property is going to increase over time, or certainly in monetary, in what you measure it in pounds. It will go up in pounds, whether the value of the pound has gone down more than the actual property and we're actually not making any money. But it does allow us to create an income from each rent that we do. And we've got about 85 units now, which we're renting, which is not bad in 5 years.
Amazing.
It's retirement money now. So it's more comfortable where I can go to bed and build a life with my family and know that there is going to be income coming in on stock that's really good, that I don't really have to touch for 10 to 15 years. So.
And how much more you think you're spending on the the SOS heat pumps, the solar panels and all, roughly?
It's negligible now. Yeah. If you buy a residential property and you get an air source heat pump, there's a bus grant that's available for developers and for homeowners. So it's $7,500, which helps you refinance. So rather than pay, unfortunately, the reason I know so much about air source heat pumps is my brother runs a company, and he was during COVID, he had the same epiphany, threw all his gas tools out, and he's been a plumber for 20 years. Right, I've got 3 kids. I want to go into air source heat pumps. And so I've been on his journey, and we're quite close. He was my best man at my wedding, and I know a lot about his journey. And he's taught me a lot. But ultimately, people go, oh yeah, so it doesn't work. But people don't spec them properly. It's all to do with lower heat, but more of it. So you have to put slightly bigger radiators in. If you under spec or over spec an air source heat pump, it's never going to work efficiently.
You mean electric radiators?
No, air source heat pump wet. So you have to put bigger radiators in, double convective radiators in a space to heat it, because it'll only heat up to like 55 degrees, 60 degrees. Which is a knot, but you've got a bigger mass of air.
Yeah.
And if it's leaking buildings, the air source is never going to heat the space. So you have to have it well insulated and have a slightly oversized rad, which means your plumbers need to be on board and understand what you're trying to do. So there is a lot more to learn. But if you get it right, I can run underfloor heating on an air source heat pump at 20 degrees. It'd be totally comfortable for my tenant. But yet the boiler is only kicking, the air source heat pump is working at such a small amount, it's negligible, because the air source is creating like 80% worth of energy for 20% of the power it's putting in. So, and if at 21 degrees over underfloor heating, means it will radiate at 21 degrees. I've not got a source of energy at the corner underneath a window that's trying to constantly burn up electricity to get to 60 degrees to then heat an area to get to 21 over the back of the room. So it's like knowing all this stuff and putting it all together means that I'm running these HMOs for effectively for nothing, but renting them out at a premium, because we put little kitchenettes and en-suites and make them like little studio flats. And we're getting between £800 and £1,200 a month for these flats. So.
And some of the developers I've spoken to, the HMO developers, have said that when they're using the eco, like solar panels, air source heat pumps, or what have you, when the surveyors actually come on site, they normally use this formula where they look at the total rent of your property, and then they deduct 20%, say, for example, for
OpEx
operating costs.
Yep.
They will just probably deduct on one of his ones 10% or 12%.
7%.
Yeah.
It's literally all prove it. I just pull out, because I'm trying to work in one area.
Have you had this experience as well?
I show them, and I'll literally make a big thing out of it and say everything we've done, we put it on the website, and we put it together in the comps and say, look, this is what it's actually costing us to run the one that's 12 doors down the road. There's all your costs. There's your statement, and they'll take that with them and take that into account. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about half a basis point on the yield calc, but that is 200 grand.
Yeah.
So why would you not do that? And then you've got the grant in place to help you with the air source. Solar panels are so cheap these days. Normally, everything I do will have a loft conversion on it. And there's a certain shape of HMO I'll buy to get 2 rooms upstairs. So that increases the footprint and the square, the GIA by 30% most of the time. So I'm adding value there. I'm adding the air source heat pumps. I'm already got scaffolding up. So putting solar panels on the roof or in the garden. Latest one, I've got 2 HMOs on at the moment. Latest one, the garden's so long because these Victorian houses that I like to buy. I've just cut 2/3 of the garden off, leveled it all off, taken all the shrubs out, put a fence around it, little gate, little service gate. We've done all the weed membrane, and I've got 23 solar panels going in this thing, I think. 20 or 23 solar panels. The whole thing will be like the whole house will be off grid. So everything will be completely run.
So where are the solar panels going?
In the garden. That's the extra landlocked space at the back. So I can, rather than have a maintainable garden,
so not on the roof, you're not doing on the roof?
No, because I want more solar panels to run this to make sure that we are, and it was cheaper to put on the ground, create your solar farm effectively on an unmaintained space, which has got all the shingle down. It shouldn't have weed membrane, double weed membrane. It should be maintenance free, but producing all the power for 6 more rooms to run. So that will help on the yield. That will push it up another 50 grand or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
You'll
not
be able to
reliant
pull
on
out
electricity.
all your money, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, no gas, disconnect that. That's 50p, standing charge these days. I mean, that adds up. So it's all about these little wins that if you're going to do it properly, do something that you're going to be happy with and want to put into your legacy portfolio, and just have a long-term view. But I'm using these properties to be ATMs to print money monthly. Jack's a good friend of mine. He's been in your podcast and you're a good friend of you. But his plan, which I thought, I've known him for 3 or 4 years now, but his plan is to turn these back into 4-bedroom family homes at the end of their journey. So once we've used them for 15, 20 years, take the 2 ground floor bathrooms out, put a new living room, dining room, kitchen, and then sell them on the open market and start selling off if you want to, or leave them to kids or whatever. So there's loads of things to do with them. But if I chose between HMOs and commercial to resi, if I wanted to do legacy properties and really go on a development journey, go for the commercial to resi. If you want to build time freedom, money freedom, location freedom, build a portfolio of HMOs all day long.
Yeah.
The demand's insane.
And does the renters' rights bill scare you?
Not at all.
All the compliance that's coming in, the fact that councils can walk into your door and fine you, I don't know, 7 grand, 20 grand, whatever it is, for non-compliance.
No, not at all. You should be running your HMO like you run your business. You should be fire compliant. You should know what you're doing. I think it's good because the people who are doing a shit job means that those people need somewhere to live. I don't think that you should be living in mold infested places. I don't think you should be treated any different. I want my tenants to stay longer. I'm building a portfolio for people if they can make it their home for 3, 4, 5 years, or want to stay indefinitely because houses aren't getting easier. The way I see it is we're servicing the lower end of the market, whether it's a 45-year-old female who's decided to start life again without an abusive husband, through to a 25-year-old that's come out of uni that wants to live near mum and dad but don't want to live with mum and dad but want to be near the family and friends and their network. These create spaces for people to call their own. And if we can create a subscription-based Netflix model where they pay £800 a month and it's their heating bills, the internet, the electricity, the council tax, everything's included in that space. I think that the more digital we go over the next 20 years, these will become more common because we'll need less space. You've gone from TVs like that to TVs like that to TVs like that. You've gone from just all sorts, everything. People need less space, and if you can put a small kitchenette in, little fridge freezer, which now obviously with the council tax thing was good because I took a bit of a risk on all of mine. That seems to not be a problem anymore with council tax banding. But they've all got en suites, all got bedrooms, and these are like, I won't buy a HMO where the room again is like 6, 7, 8 square meters, whatever the minimum space standards is. These are all 10, 12 15 comfortable spaces. Like this size of studio is exactly what I would put in a bed, a living area. It's what I would do if I was a teenager and I'd want to live in my room. Yeah. That, it wants to be a bit bigger than that. Yeah. And these are nice spaces, and they've got WhatsApp groups, they've got communities, they go out for lunches together and they all cook together, and it's nice if you create a nice environment for people, and then you get good tenants and then they stay longer. I've got tenants that have been 2, 3, 4 years now that just aren't interested unless they get a partner or have to relocate. Yeah. That's really the only reason why people move out.
I've had tenants for 10 years. And they're amazing.
HMOs. And they you know them, like Gina, this lady I've had in Flat F since my first professional HMO. She was the mum of the house, but they all respected her. They'd all look after each other. She would get the washing out and they would sort them out, and they feel it's their home, right? And so what the Renters Reform Bill shouldn't scare anyone who's doing a good job, because I feel like we're offering a service. We're not being the greedy landlord. Yeah. But I am trying to make a living. We all got to make a profit.
That's the thing with government, though, right? It's the demonizing of the landlords. Of course, there are bad landlords, but there's also bad tenants. But yeah,
I'm so disappointed with the government. I think that this country is we are so much better than what we are. I mean, he's an absolute wet lemon. I mean, the whole thing is disgusting. We need a change. I don't know how that change is going to happen, but I do. As you know, I'm a massive Bitcoin advocate, and I think that the way that the government, the way that the government bodies, the think tanks, all the people who don't want you to learn about Bitcoin are making it very difficult and making it very scary for people to think, oh, what is this thing that's not new? It's 16 years old now. It's already won. And now it's a case of people buy Bitcoin at the price they deserve, and everyone owes it to themselves. It's a self-fulfilling journey. Not everyone going at different speeds.
So how did you get into, okay, we're digressing a little bit, but let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit, because I know you're quite passionate about it. It'll be great for people who are in property to maybe also, pass some of their money and put it in Bitcoin, because it's an investment strategy. How did you get into it, and how you do?
Bitcoin is an alpha property, so it's above property. I know people watch this because they're property development. Yeah. The reason people invest in property and why we all invest in property is because it's a store of wealth. Yeah. And to take your money, the reason people buy 13 beachfront location properties is because they can't live in all 13. Yeah. they've got enough clothes, they've bought enough yachts, and they need to store their money in something. And until Bitcoin, there was nothing else that was digital. There was analog ways of saving money: gold, property, stocks, and shares.
Yeah.
Bitcoin has digitalized the way that we transfer value. It's very difficult to understand once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And it's that people who understand Bitcoin don't go back to going. It's like saying, would you go back to not using digital TV and using a VHR and a DVD? You just never would contemplate it. Kids don't even know what this is now. And that's what everything that's turned digital is not only 100 times better, it's 1,000,000 times better. And the transfer of wealth, going from artifactual money. So, 1,000 years ago, you'd use stones and rocks and beads and glass and shells to transfer value so people knew what was worth something. And it doesn't matter what they were, people believed in it. And that was what was used as a transfer of value. Then you went on to artifactual money.
Bartering?
Bartering. Yeah, bartering was effectively the same thing. Before artifactual money, it was, I owe you 6 sheep for my camel and all the rest of it. Then we used something that was like a manual way of running a digital abacus. And it was like an abacus, a way of using that. Then we went to metal money, so golds, coppers, silvers, which were very heavy. It's luggy. People could rob you, kill you, take your gold. And then you went to goldsmiths, and goldsmiths then went into IOUs and basically government money. So, paperback government money pegged to gold. And then from pegging to gold in 1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard and took the gold value away and said, right, now it's fiat currency, which is basically another word for a government promise. If I'm the USA, I promise you this is what it'd be worth. So
the money that we use now.
The money we use now. But what that done is it allowed humans to tap into the greed and power of what it's like to debase something. So you could then, if you've got no limits to what you can print, whoever's in power just print more and more and more. And we're seeing it. And COVID was the eye-opener for me. And that was where I just couldn't understand why pay tax if they can just print it? What's the point? So from there, we've gone from government money to now digital money. So this is the history of money. And I think everyone who spends 80% of their life on this planet working for something they think is worth something should really understand what the hell this is actually worth. And I think what is money and learning about it. And there's so many things on YouTube now. There's actually a really good video which the Bitcoin community brought out maybe a year ago. It's called God Bless Bitcoin. And what they've done is they took it on a very, very slow journey to allow people to understand that journey of money. Absorb the money, but in a very slow way where it asks you the right questions like, surely this is too good to be true. Surely the government are going to ban it. You go through the same, everyone does. And so you get to the point where you go, this is the future. So, and what they've done is they took every religious cult, they took Judaism, Hindu, every single head of leader, Christianity, and they've taken their opinion of what Bitcoin does in terms of global economics. So he who has the money has the power. You can't fund wars with digital currency where people have the choice. For me to send you value from me to you, I go off on a tangent. I speak at 1,000,000 miles an hour because I'm deeply passionate about it. But to send value from me to you without any fee takers, if I try to send £5 to El Salvador, you just physically can't do it. We have to use a 1970s based SWIFT system. We have to go through the Visa network, fee takers, banks. It cost me 40 quid to get £5 to El Salvador. With Bitcoin, I can send it over the internet immediately to your phone, peer to peer, for free. And that's the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin, there's only 21 million of them. But every Bitcoin is broken into 100 million pieces called Satoshis. So the Kenyan farmer can go and buy 4 Bitcoin Satoshis worth, which is a quarter of a penny or whatever. He can go and buy 1,000 Satoshis. And he has the same voting rights and power as the guy who owns the block in Manhattan who's got 6 Bitcoin or 60 Bitcoin or 600 Bitcoin. Because everyone's got the same rules-based system. It's still got the same value, even though it can't be printed. You can't print more than 21 million. So there's ever. It's capped over the next 100 and something years till 2140. So it just means that people can transfer value between each other without relying on a third party, which also takes power away from the governments. And the reason I went into that is because the governments have got all this power where we are puppeteers and living in their world where they can decide to increase interest rates or print more money and have all these levers, which has such a massive impact on our lives.
QE, the whole lot.
It's why should government have the power to print? And they've manipulated it since 1913 and since there's loads of history. But yeah, it's been a science project since 1971, and in my opinion, the fiat currency broke down and was ended in 2008. And when money became free and they could print what they wanted, it's
so you think there's a decline of this world that we're in right now, where it's paper money, dollar currency, whatever, into this new Bitcoin world? And you think, as a property developer, What do you?
So I only got into property development because it was only I have to either build a national loft conversion company to increase my income so I can buy more Bitcoin, or I could buy property, create income from assets which was within my control, and then use any surplus money after buying my food, paying my mortgage to buy Bitcoin. And that's what I've done over the last 5 years. But the real clever, once you have to understand the fundamentals of what Bitcoin is first before you start looking at the volatility. People get scared by the fact that it could drop 50% tomorrow. I honestly couldn't care. In fact, I try and buy little and often as much as possible, dollar cost averaging. And as it goes down, I think, great, I could buy twice as much as I could have the day before.
What's the minimum people can invest into
£1.
Bitcoin?
You can invest whatever you like. You know, it's not, people think, oh my God, I can't afford, not, it's it was $123,000 a few days ago. It's about $112,000. It's crashed 10%. Well, people who buy it, it's great. It's 10% cheaper than it was last week. People who've just put in at 123 and it's dropped, they go, oh, I've just lost 10% of my wealth. So that's why you just put a little bit in and you just keep going. And as you keep going, I bought all the way through the last drop. Bitcoin is the only mirror against the fiat debasement or the M2 money supply. So globally, what we can't see before Bitcoin is assets would rise and people feel wealthier. But if America print a load of money, then China do, and then UA, and then Bank of England and ECB, all these countries do it at the same time. So on the surface, it all looks the same. But underneath, the volume of water of the money increase is what's changed. Bitcoin is a complete mirror on the M2 money supply. So as the country, it keeps everyone accountable by the price of Bitcoin. And when governments
So you mean
borrow
that
money,
when we print more money, then they create more Bitcoin?
well, no, they don't create more Bitcoin. The Bitcoin value goes up. So Bitcoin is a protocol. It's like understanding the internet or understanding oil before it was used, or understanding fire. Fire is scary for people until you can control it, put into a combustible engine and change the revolution of the car and transportation. So everything's scary until you understand it, and then it becomes a utility. And Bitcoin is a utility that can transfer wealth between partners. And just because you can't touch it, gold was the next best thing, but it's a digital gold. You try and leave the country with $100 million, £100 million worth of gold and try and get out of the airport. You ain't going anywhere. The gold you might own in your pocket still owns, it's the state own it. You ain't leaving. And if you want to try and move £1 billion worth of gold from country to country, you've got to have an army to move it with you. And that's why gold didn't work. And now Bitcoin is the exact same. It's got the same fundamentals. It's scarce. It's truly scarce. Gold is obviously always being mined. It's divisible. It can break down into infinite parts. It's easily transferable. It's recognizable globally. I can leave with 10, 20, 30, 50 Bitcoin, 6 Bitcoin in my pocket, in my head. It's a code of which it's 12 or 24 words, which allow me to move these letters and words to you and back. So it's a protocol, but I can leave the airport today and I can get out of this country in 3 hours with my family and take all my wealth with me. I can't do that with my HMO portfolio. So there's just so many benefits about owning it and understanding it.
So we need to watch God
bless Bitcoin, 100%.
Bitcoin.
You do nothing else after this but watch that. And once you understand it, the quicker I can get as many people onto the Bitcoin network, you then live in a parallel universe between the fiat world, which they are controlling you, as in the governments, the establishment. We're watching it in real time.
Yeah.
But when you watch from the other side, it's hilarious because everything they're doing, property is going up in value if you measure it in pounds, it's falling at a rate of knots against Bitcoin. So if you measure anything, gold, shares, stocks, property, measure it in the Bitcoin chart. So versus Bitcoin, everything falls to zero against Bitcoin because it's the only thing that's scarce on this planet. And as soon as you can get it, it doesn't matter if you buy it for £5, £500,000 or £1 million. I think that Bitcoin's going up to $13 million by 2045. At the moment, it's $100,000. There's so much scope. You're never going to be
so in
too
20 years.
20 years, absolutely. And it'll be $1 million by 2030 to 2033. I don't really care because I live in the world of Bitcoin. So if I can't make 60% on my return, which is what Bitcoin does on average, then it makes me wonder whether I should invest in it. And yes, you can invest in your own business. You can invest in property if you can pull all your money out or as much of your money out as possible, because then you've created an ATM that's printing money with no money left in or little money left in. So property is still a great move if you can get all your money out. But if you're locking up money, £1 million of your money, you might as well put that into Bitcoin. Yes, it'll go from £1 million to £500,000. You're going to feel horrific. But that million goes from £1 million to £500,000 to £3 million to £2 million to £5 million to 2.5 to £7 million. So over like a 4-year period, it's 200-week moving average. If you zoom out enough, forget about the noise, because that's how people get scared out of selling. Big institutions and other buyers buy, that creates a new floor and it just steps up over time because it's truly scarce. As you can tell, I clearly understand a lot about it, but I absolutely encourage, and I'm part of the Ground Up podcast, I talk about it every week on there, because I feel like if I can just turn 3, 4, 5 people, the quicker most people come over to the Bitcoin network, the much more harmonious world we'll live in globally.
Well, you have inspired me because I've up until now not looked into it at all. But I think, you're right. We've been controlled by all of this government noise that's going on, a recession and inflation and interest rates and, I think I'm definitely going to be looking into that.
All I would say, the caveat is it's a 4-year cycle. And for the last 3 years when no one's wanting to listen, as it's been on the bottom of it's bottomed out effectively and it's now rising again, what's going to happen is retail start buying in. So between now and maybe the next 6 months is the most volatile upside where it actually creates a market. People go, oh my God, it was 115 today. It's now 120, 130, 140. This thing could rocket. It might be the top and it just bleeds down to 80 or 90 grand. But what I done last cycle was got involved, where 90% of people is that they'll get involved on the top because that's when it creates most interest. People buy. I was buying like $40,000. It went to 47, 49. It went up to 60,000, then dropped to 15,000. And I just bought all the way down because the more it was dropping, going, if I believed in this thing at $40,000, surely I should be buying more at 25, at 20, at 18,000. And I just chipped away buying a little bit I could afford all the way down. But now I'm up 500% 4 years later. So all I would say to you is if you're going to put $1,000 in, 500 grand or £1, don't touch it. Don't even worry about thinking about taking it out for 4 years minimum. Because if you can leave it for 4 years minimum, you'll be the first person on the planet who's lost money if you sell it between now and whenever you buy it. So you have to leave it for a full 4 years.
But like bringing it back to property now,
yeah,
we think you only realize the loss until you sell it, right?
Exactly.
Like stocks and shares or anything until you crystallize it. So, so all the profit that you're making from your property business, presumably you're putting it into Bitcoin, is it?
Theoretically, yeah. I mean, yes, at the moment we're still in growth phase. We're still in lessons learning phase. So the money is going into digging us out of holes. And the best thing about running a systems, a loft conversion business and a property business is there's high frequency of pounds and low frequency. So I use SkyLofts is my cash flow. It's what we work on and we focus a lot.
Lofts.
We're bringing lofts in all the time. We're completing and we're building that business. And then I use that money to obviously fill any holes in the slow pounds. But yeah, the ultimate goal is to, I buy regularly, but I don't actually take it out personally and then buy Bitcoin. I buy it through the company. So the company is buying Bitcoin.
SW Homes owns the Bitcoin.
Yeah, we are chipping away at an account. So effectively, there's a guy called Jack Malus, who's a guy from Chicago and New York in America. Great guy, been in Bitcoin since 2013. He set up a website, or a bank called strike.me, and businesses can buy it directly. So rather than pay corporate tax, then pay dividends and put it into my bank to buy it, then when I sell it and any capital gains I have to then pay, I just take some excess profits from SW Homes, put it into strike.me, flip it into Bitcoin, and then put it into cold storage or do what I need to do with it to keep it. So if I put 100 grand's worth of money into Bitcoin and it goes from 100 to 200 grand, when I sell it or use it back into cash flow, I only pay 20% corp tax on the 100 grand it's made. The 100 grand is still cash on my balance sheet, but it's then looked at as income or profit that I've made as a company. So
you only pay on the base.
You only pay on the profit you've made on top of the investment. So the investment is what you've put in. That's your loaned money effectively.
Yeah.
And then the 100 grand or the 50 grand or whatever it makes, if I need to pull any out, I just pay at the time I crystallize that profit. I then pay on next year's balance sheet, on the next year's end of year.
But could you use Bitcoin as collateral, for example?
Definitely.
Because like if you've got a house, you can do obviously mortgage, second charge, you can use as collateral, revolving credit facility. There's loads of different ways you can borrow money against property. Could you do the same for Bitcoin?
I've just done exactly that. So when money was free in 2020, everyone was getting refinancing. So I refinanced our house at 5-year fixed at like 1.65%. What that allowed me to do was pull 200 grand out of my house to use. And at the time I was going to property.
Was it unencumbered at the time?
No, it was unencumbered. I just, the equity, because we added an extension and we added value to it, the way it was valued at the time. And this was obviously in the prime when everyone was printing money, house prices are up, everyone's feeling nice and drunk and jolly. And then the QT happens and everyone is struggles. So this is in the jolly times where the bank's like, yeah, we'll give you what you want, is your 200 grand. And then we pay them 1.65%. So I put that money to work, and my plan with my wife was to show her, like, we put it into a property, put it back out, we're going to create 2 to 3 times as much profit from that property than we will be paying on the interest. And I deal with the finances in our relationship, and she trusted me, we done it. But then once we done it and we started using other people's money, what do you do with that 200 grand? So I then obviously through Bitcoin was buying 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, whatever I could afford to chip away on this DCA journey. As it was going down, I was thinking, I've got to buy more. I want to bring my entry point. DCA, dollar cost average. So I'm lowering, every time the price is lowering, I'm buying more So I'm bringing my entry point down, and then when it goes up, you're then in profit. So I put the 200 grand into Bitcoin. I was up 500%, and then since now we're moving house, I've got to basically put the money back into the house to fill the difference between the new house we're buying and our house. So rather than sell the Bitcoin that I own personally and pay capital gains on the profit, I actually set up a Lombard facility in Switzerland. I transferred the money. I used an agent and a broker, and you have to do a lot of research on this, but this is what billionaires do. They don't buy these yachts and houses. They just borrow against the assets they already own, and they live effectively in debt. That's the credit-based system we've built. So what I done was I set up a Lombard facility. I transferred 600 grand worth of Bitcoin. I've borrowed 200 grand against it, but I've borrowed it at 6.15% on a loan, which is fairly low money. It's an evergreen loan, so I never have to pay that 200 grand back, providing Bitcoin goes up. I've got other options to fill the gap if it does drop, but I don't think it's going down to $30,000 or below again. So I've taken a calculated, educated guess to go, let me pull that money out. I've now increased my house from the house I'm in now to a house that's quite a lot bigger and with massive amount of potential to extend. This will be our forever home, but I've not done anything. All I've done is lent against the Bitcoin that I've made. I've still got the Bitcoin, so that goes up another 50 to 100%, which I'm betting hedging.
You've got this free 200 grand.
Well, 200 grand I'm paying interest on, but I could go back to my original facility and borrow another 200 grand against it 4 years later, which will then pay for the extension and all that stuff I want to do for it. And then 4 years later. So as Bitcoin increases in value, on the certainty that they're going to debase the money, which is the mirror between M2 money supply and Bitcoin, I've hedged the fact that I should always be able to borrow against that Bitcoin and never have to pay capital gains on it. But this is what happens. This is like level 7, if you like, out of a level 10.
So the money,
journey.
the 200 grand was from a Swiss bank?
It was from a Swiss bank, exactly.
Right.
In Swiss franc, I could have borrowed it in euros, 8%, or in Swiss franc at 6.15. That's on the basis I'm paying it back. So the Swiss franc is stronger than the euro, which is why it's a higher interest rate, because the euro will debase quicker than Swiss. And I was so close to taking it out in euros, and then realized actually I'm never ever going to pay it off. If the way it goes, I think the economy is going with Bitcoin, it goes gradually, then suddenly, and it could go up 100 grand in a day, coming up soon enough. It only goes up 10 days in a year, but those 10 days you've got to be in the market. So it goes down or sideways for 98% of the year. And those days where you wake up one day and it's up 13 grand and you've got Bitcoin, you are making money effectively. Well, you're not. It's hedged against the amount of money in the system. So I'm not making money. I'm just storing my wealth in today's money and I'm hedging against it being debased of the future. If I put 100 grand in the bank, we all know it goes down 7 to 10% year on year. Anyway, this is a property program, but Bitcoin is an alpha property. It's the number one property. So I totally recommend anyone who understands property and debt and refinancing, this is like the next level up.
It's worth looking into. I think there's no harm in exploring the opportunity out there. But again, going back to property again, if we were one less than alpha property. But what I was going to say is, in terms of the property vision, then are you doing a lots of projects at the moment together? You're doing conversions, you're doing HMOs. What's your vision going forward for the property side of things?
I just keep doing what we're doing. I'm not in no major rush to do any bigger sites, but we have got 2 fairly good option offers out there at the moment. So if one of those comes off, they're going to be a great sideline hustle. SkyLofts is number one priority in terms of making sure that is good customer experience. Yeah, and we're keeping quality high, health and safety high, and everyone's happy there. We've got obviously a £4 million GDV site in Twickenham. We've got a bank in Windsor, opposite Windsor Castle. We've just agreed a lease with a AAA rated tenant there. So we're just doing the demo work at the moment. That's all going to be done and finished, ready to sign the lease over maybe beginning of October. We've got...
That's commercial.
It's an old HSBC. Yeah, 3 floors. We were going to put two flats at the top and the Class G. After going for planning, getting all the external changes, they really don't want Class G in the PD schemes. I mean, yes, it's all easy to go, yeah, do PD, but it really isn't that easy. And with Class G, it's 2 units above in a conservation area listed building with the new new entrance we put in, but they wanted us to reduce the ground floor to so much to get all the bin storage and waste and bikes and stuff. We're losing the prime value of this ground floor site, which is this tenant has offered us, they said to us, because they were interested, but then when we said we were going to lose a third of the front for entry to the 2 flats, because my plan was to make
zone A, right? You're going to lose a huge value in the property. Yeah.
We had a coffee shop that was not bothered, but then when we were having so much resistance from the council to put these 2 flats in, this tenant come back and said, look, how much were you trying to make on the 2 top floors?
Yeah.
I said, well, we'll be making a minimum of 10 grand a year on the 2 flats when they're done, plus the ag of building them. And they just turned around and said, look, we'll just pay you the 20 grand a year on top, not to do the work, and we'll take the whole building for 15 years with no breaks. So that's just added some decent value. So even though I'm gutted that we're not building these 2, because I was going to build 2 Airbnb flats, the views of the castle are stunning. Like it would have been so good to show other investors or get them to go and stay with their families. So it's part of this big plan that I had. But it's a good deal. So we've got to get that one cleared through.
And also Windsor's got Article 4, right? So you couldn't do MA.
No, no. It's Class G underlisted. So then they wanted us to again put extra bins and bikes, even though we had internal cupboards upstairs.
You're making good, and it's passive. That's the beauty about commercial, right?
It's
I mean, does that inspire you to do more of these commercial to commercials?
It's just another one in our armoury. If the right building comes up, it's because it's a beautiful building overlooking the castle. Not many people can say they've got a building that's got these views, and I'll never get the chance again to buy one on this strip. So that was the small opportunity we had. I've got an accountancy building. We've got 10-bed HMO going in, which is a 6-bed HMO, and then a flat with permission underneath, which will be a commercial refi. Got another 6-bed HMO and Aldershot.
Did you get the permission for the 10-bed?
Approved. Yeah, we don't do 10-bed as a large HMO. We'll split it and then refinance the whole thing. So as you might have seen before, I bought an old sex shop, which was literally selling sex toys and bits and bobs, and a Chinese shop next door to each other.
Yes.
6-bed HMO and a 5-bed HMO. Got the licenses separate, but then refinanced it as an 11-bed HMO. So then you can take a commercial yield on it and all the rest of it. So there's ways of playing the game I wouldn't waste my time trying to go for anything above 6-bed HMOs, but I'd definitely package them up and do.
You're doing 2 HMOs
3
out of that.
6-bed HMOs side by side, or buy a building, cut it up into, cluster flats, and then do it potentially if the right sites come up. Or even better, buy a commercial site, then get your cluster flats, then get your commercial. Because I look at commercial as another door. It's another 1,800 quid a month or however big the shop is. So it's another door without the headache, hopefully.
Well, it looks like you definitely just going for it. You're not stopping. You're doing Bitcoin, you're doing property, you're doing banks, HMOs. It's amazing. So what's the vision? What's the end goal for property?
Honestly, to inspire people to get into Bitcoin, because it's pure
seriously?
time.
Is that your ultimate?
I think so, because the more I learn about it, the more I actually become so. It's a philosophy of which it helps everyone on the planet, and I think that if I can get out there and just help, 1% of the people I talk to or reach out to, just them to explore it. I'm hoping to. That's really, I think I've got enough now where I'm comfortable, and I'm like I said, I'm 40. I want to enjoy my 40s and 50s before I get too old, and I love exploring. We love holidays and stuff, and I think I've got enough now to enjoy that part and watch my kids grow. I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I want to be there for them, which I've always said I want, and I left it later on in life to start the family thing. And I want to pot around in my garden. We just got this house that's over an acre. We exchange hopefully today or Monday.
Good luck.
In a great little village, and it means that we can pitch up. I can make it pretty much. It's unlimited potential of what we can do. So I'll work hard until that's finished, and then hopefully I'll enjoy my 50s and 60s, potting in the garden. And I'm into freshwater swimming since March. We've had a really good summer for it, so I'm hoping I'm going to carry on through the winter. But it's absolutely exhilarating when your body feels like
swimming
it's going
in
to die.
the river,
in the lakes,
river and lakes.
There's a lake down called the Keys, which is one of the best freshwater. I've lived next to it for 20 years or whatever, 30 years. And never ever thought about swimming in it. And now there's like 3 springs that come up. So it's really quite clear, and it's really, you can almost drink the water. It's that clean. It's oxidized water. And it's just exhilarating. And when your body feels like it's going to die, you feel alive. And when you get out and you
it's like the cold plunge and stuff, like a bit like that, right?
Exactly that. But I do about a kilometre swim, sometimes 2 kilometres if it's just too nice to get out. And you get out and you feel alive. And it's I'm going to build one in my garden, was where I was going with that. Right at the bottom.
Nice.
Yeah, you can do some wicked designs, because you actually have an area you swim. So you have an area that you can you basically use like oak sleepers to build it up, and then on the outside you build this ledge. I'm going to do it myself, and it's going to be a summer project. And you put a big liner in, so all the water stays in. And then on the outside this ledge, you have all your plants and your newts and stuff that just oxygenate the water. You have a little skimmer and a little pump, so all the air goes through the water. But what you do is you create this beautiful, crystal clear, cold, natural water that doesn't need chlorine, because it's all oxygenated and all looked after by the plants and the area. So I'm going to have that at the bottom of this garden, and then my plan is to swim in that every day. So that's my latest vision.
Wow.
We'll see if it happens. I might get bored after a year of moving in the house and not do it, but I'm pretty pumped to do it.
it's, been super inspirational actually listening to you, your whole story. You have been completely nonstop for the last 60 minutes.
Cheers.
You have really inspired a lot of people, not just to do property, but also Bitcoin. So I think hopefully people will learn a little bit from that.
And let me know if you do inspire. I've had a few people through Instagram actually say, because the Ground Up podcast, I want to give them a shout out. Jack Jiggins, Dorian and Ryan, they're good guys. They're from all over the country. And you should come on, in fact, definitely come on and just do it. It's an informal, fly on the wall hour of just chatting like this. And it's great fun to do with the guys. But yeah, I've had a few people reach out on Instagram saying, man, you've inspired me. I've started doing it. What book shall I read and stuff? So if you're interested,
so your vision is coming true.
Yeah, manifest it.
Absolutely.
It's just for the greater good of humanity is what I honestly believe. So
amazing.
We'll see.
Definitely inspired me for sure. And thank you so much for your time. Really excited to follow your journey more. I'm sure you're doing lots more. I can't imagine you just sitting there doing nothing, because you don't look like the kind of person you are going to do a lot more. So looking forward to seeing more of your journey. But thank you so much for sharing.
Cheers, Manni. Appreciate
your journey. Thanks. Guys, if you enjoyed watching that, please do like, share, subscribe and comment for regular property updates. Titans is a property, education and collaborative platform which is effectively a community of property professionals, investors, developers who like to come together, connect, engage and help grow each other's businesses. Find out more, Team Titans or Coro 2K.